What if I told you that the key to a perfect rom-com isn't a slow-motion hallway walk or a bouquet of flowers, but actually involves getting a basketball to the face and having another girl vomit on your favorite dress? Today, we are going to be talking about the book Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter, where FMC Liz tries to script her own happily ever after, only to find out that real life is a lot more chaotic and a lot more swoony than the movies. Now, this story gave me major vibes of the movie The Duff. The constant playful back and forth between Wes and Liz feels so much like the banter between Wes and Bianca. If you haven't seen the movie yet, you absolutely should. It's the perfect way to get into the enemies to lovers headspace before diving into this book. Even Michael Young, Liz's longtime crush, feels like he stepped right out of that film as a total Tucker type, with his polished and charming personality. Alright, let's meet our characters. First up, we have our heroine, Liz Buxbaum. She's a full-blown hopeless romantic, like rom-coms are her personality. Her all-time favourite is Bridget Jones's Diary. I like you just the way you are. Swoon. And she basically views her entire life through movie tropes and perfectly timed soundtracks. She's also super sentimental. She holds tightly onto the memory of her late mum, and rom-coms and music are kind of her way of staying connected to her. And speaking of music, she wants to be a music supervisor and spends her free time creating hyper-specific, meticulously curated soundtracks for every possible life event. But she's also very prone to the ick. Like, relationships rarely make it past 2 weeks because the second a guy stops living up to the fantasy in her head, she's out. And finally, she's determined, but a little bit oblivious. She's laser focused on winning over Michael Young while completely missing what's very obviously developing right in front of her with Wes. Next up, we have our MMC Wes Bennett. He's Liz's next door neighbour and lifelong nemesis. And by nemesis, I mean he's been annoying her since kindergarten and absolutely enjoying it. He's mischievous, loves a bit of a verbal sparring, and will 100% pull a prank. Like taping a fake parking ticket to a windshield just for fun. But underneath all that, he's actually kind of soft. Surprisingly nurturing even. This is the same guy who helps her when she gets vomited on. Romance is alive and well, clearly. And walks to the hospital when she's hurt. And here's where it gets dangerous. He's secretly a romantic.
Mwah.
He knows his way around rom-com tropes and he's been into Liz for years. Like sitting on his porch just to listen to her practice piano levels of into her. Also, he's not just the funny guy. He's a genuinely talented athlete. Star baseball pitcher, multiple university offers, the whole deal. And personality-wise, he's very candid. He'll call Liz out. Uptight, high-strung, no hesitation. But at the same time, he's the one pushing her to relax and just be herself. Then we've got the supporting cast who honestly do a lot of heavy lifting in this story. First, Michael Young, Liz's childhood crush, her ultimate goal.
Mwah.
The guy she's been romantically fixated on for years, and the entire reason this plan even exists. Then there's Joss, Liz's pragmatic best friend. Loyal but very blunt. Lainey is the so-called mean girl, and of course the competition for Michael's attention, because what's a rom-com setup without a little rivalry? We've also got Helena, Liz's very cool stepmom. And finally, we have the most important character. Sorry, I don't make the rules. Mr. Fitzpervert, Liz's cat who doesn't actually impact the plot at all, but had to be mentioned purely because of that name, which of course is inspired by Bridget Jones's Diary. So let's get into the setup. We start with Liz, a high school senior who is deep in her rom-com era. She doesn't just like them. She basically uses them as a blueprint for life, complete with perfectly timed soundtracks and main character expectations. And this isn't just for fun. It's her way of staying connected to her late mum, who was a screenwriter and passed down both her belief in happily ever afters and an elite level DVD collection. Yeah, DVDs. At the beginning of the story, Liz's life is pretty much defined by two ongoing battles. First, the parking war. She's in a full-blown no-rules conflict with her next-door neighbour and lifelong nemesis, Wes Bennett. And we're not talking petty. This is strategic. This man is out here reserving parking spots with random heavy objects like it's a competitive sport. Second, her love life, or lack of one. Despite being a romantic at heart, Liz has a terrible track record. Her relationships barely last 2 weeks because she builds guys up in her head as perfect cinematic soulmates. And then reality hits, and she gets the ick immediately. So naturally, she's resigned to going to senior prom with her best friend Joss, which, according to Joss, is completely fine. It's just a dance. But to Liz, this is a crisis. Prom is supposed to be the moment, the grand movie-worthy climax. And going with a friend, that's not the vibe. And then enter Michael Young, Liz's childhood crush, the guy she's basically romanticized for years. And when he suddenly moves back to town, Liz is like, oh, this is it. This is fate. This is the meet cute. Except, of course, it's not that simple. Problem number 1, Lainey Morgan. Michael is now living next door to Liz's childhood rival, and rumors are already flying that they're basically almost a thing. Problem number 2, Wes. Liz doesn't share any classes with Michael, so she has zero natural way to get close to him. Meanwhile, Wes, already friends with him, already invited him to a party, already living Liz's dream. So with no other options, Liz does the unthinkable. She goes to Wes and proposes a deal. She offers him the one thing he wants most, permanent, uncontested access to the parking spot in exchange for his help getting Michael to notice her, and ideally ask her to the prom. And somehow, he agrees. And that's where their very chaotic plan begins. So now we get into the actual mission, aka Wes and Liz trying to turn her into Michael Young's dream girl. And honestly, it's cray-cray from the start. First up, we've got Reno's party. Wes brings Liz as his guest to this very jock-heavy party so she and Michael can accidentally run into each other. And it does not go well. Michael mistakes Liz's vintage dress for a waitress uniform, which is already painful, and then Liz tries to save Wes from this gossip girl, Ashley Sparks, by pretending they're together, which, of course, spirals into a full-blown rumor that they're dating. So naturally, instead of shutting that down, they lean into it. Oh, and Ashley accidentally throws up on Liz and her waitress uniform at the party. Yikes. Then enter the fake dating era. They decide to pretend they're into each other for a week to make Liz seem more desirable. Like she's not just little Liz anymore, but an actual romantic option. And Wes really commits to the bit. Behind the scenes, he starts hyping Liz up to Michael like full PR campaign energy. He's texting him things like, she's cool AF, drinks black coffee, has a secret tattoo, basically crafting this effortlessly cool version of her. And it works. Michael literally tells Liz that Wes won't stop talking about her, and suddenly he's seeing her in a completely different light. So now that the attention is there, Wes decides it's time for a rebrand. He takes Liz shopping because apparently her current style is too ruffly for Michael's taste. And yes, he buys her white Chuck Taylors like it's a personality upgrade. And when she shows up in her new look, everyone notices. Joss is impressed. Michael is impressed. And when her outfit accidentally reveals her tattoo, Michael is very impressed. Then we move on to the basketball game setup. Wes invites Liz to a playoff game as a casual hang, but really it's all very strategic. He makes her sit between him and Michael in the back of a minivan. Forced proximity, we love to see it. And even gets her to bet on the game so she comes across as a chill sports girl. And again, it works. Michael is into it. But the universe said, not too much success, because a basketball hits Liz directly in the face. Cue massive nosebleed, swelling, and the unfortunate continuation of her already iconic reputation as vomit girl from the party. So, not exactly the glamorous rom-com moment she was hoping for. Then comes a very calculated move from Wes. At a movie night, he tells Michael that he's over being in Liz's friend zone and is planning to ask out another girl named Alex, which basically clears the path for Michael to make a move without feeling like he's betraying Wes. And he does. He takes Liz upstairs to this private music room, shows her this grand piano, and they finally have their first real movie moment alone. And then we get the grand gesture. Michael goes all out and creates this huge boggle-thin promposal on the side of his car at school. Very extra, very on brand for what Liz thinks she wants. And technically, mission accomplished. He asks her to prom, she says yes, everything works, but emotionally it doesn't hit the way it's supposed to, because somewhere along the way, Liz has fallen for Wes. Wow. And now it feels like she's won the wrong guy, while the right one is moving on with someone else. Now, obviously this is a rom-com, so yes, there's a happily ever after. Wow. I won't spoil exactly how it all comes together, but let's be real, it's not exactly a mystery. From the very beginning, it's painfully clear who's down bad. Wes isn't just into Liz, he's been into Liz. Wait, does that sound dirty? Anyway, he's just expressing it in the most chaotic playground boy way possible. You know, the emotional equivalent of pulling pigtails because he wants her attention. Only works in fiction, not reality. Remember that, ladies? Anyway, let's break down the evidence of how Wes has been her Mr. Darcy the entire time. Let's start with their childhood. Okay, first, the piano thing. Liz's dad reveals that Wes used to sit out on his back porch just to listen to her practice. And not when she was good, no, when she was objectively terrible. That is commitment. Then there's the 7th grade moment when Liz's stepmom accidentally donates her late mum's entire DVD collection. Liz is understandably devastated. Wes finds her crying in the driveway, and instead of making fun of her like usual, he just stays, listens, and then gives her $10, claiming it's just so that she'll shut up so she can go and buy them back. Sir, be serious. And the parking war? Not even real. Helena points out that Wes always had a space in his own driveway. He only started fighting Liz for that street spot when she got her car, purely so they'd have a reason to interact every single day. That's not a rivalry. That's a routine. And eventually, Wes admits the truth. He says he basically fell in love with teasing her back in 2nd grade because he liked how easily she reacted. Huh? And that those feelings only grew from there. He even remembers her mum so clearly, describing her as enchanting and kind, and shares this sweet story about how once she patched him up after he hurt himself and made him feel like a hero. So yeah, this has been years in the making. Now, let's talk about his actions during Operation Michael. At Reno's party when Liz gets vomited on, because you know it's not a rom-com without some vomit, Wes doesn't hesitate. He takes control of the situation, gets her cleaned up, gives her his own clothes to change into, and even takes her bag of contaminated outfits home for her. During the whole makeover situation, while he's helping her shop, he secretly buys her those white Chuck Taylors himself. Nice. No announcement, no credit, just because he thinks she'd love them. And the $50 bet at the basketball game? Not random. He knows she's short on the money for the dress she wants, so he sets it up in a way where she can win exactly what she needs without it feeling like charity, which is kind of sweet. Then there's all the behind the scenes hyping. He's out here texting Michael, talking Liz up like she's the coolest person alive, highlighting all the little things that make her, her. The tattoo, the music, her quirks, all the things he already loves about her. And when she gets hit in the face with a basketball, because this girl cannot catch a break, he's the one using his shirt to stop the bleeding and insisting on taking her to the ER when no one else is available. And then we get the actual emotional confessions. At one point, he admits he regrets pushing her to change her style. He tells her she looks best when she's just herself. Natural curls, no pretending. When Liz assumes he wants someone perfect like Alex, a girl that has openly admitted to liking Wes, he shuts that down immediately. He tells her, very clearly, that Alex isn't her. When Liz talks about music, Wes notices her whole face light up, and he just wants to be around her always. I have liquid leaking out of my eyes. And finally, in the epilogue, we see just how deep this goes. Wes goes with Liz to visit her mum's grave regularly. He gives her space to talk, never intrudes, but he's always there. And before they leave, he says a sarcastic little goodbye to the headstone, which somehow makes the whole moment even more meaningful. So yeah, if you needed proof, this man didn't just fall for her, he grew up loving her. Alright, so let's talk about my final thoughts. I gave Better Than the Movies 5 stars. And honestly, I don't say that lightly. This book was just such a fun experience. It's well written, super easy to get into, and the kind of story that has you smiling 1 second and then laughing out loud the next. And I think the biggest reason for that? The banter. The back and forth between Liz and Wes is just so good. It's playful, it's quick, it feels natural, and it genuinely made me laugh. Not just like little exhale, I mean actual laughing. As I said before, it reminded me a lot of the dynamic in The Duff. The same kind of chaotic teasing energy. Wes and Liz have that Wes and Bianca vibe where they're constantly going at each other, but you can feel the tension underneath it. And even Michael, he very much gave me Tucker energy. Polished, charming, but not quite it, you know? I also really connected with Liz as a character. Like the rom-com obsession, the unrealistic expectations, the immediate ick when a guy says or does one slightly off thing, painfully relatable. But what I appreciated most was the contrast between the two male leads. Michael starts paying attention to Liz once she changes things up, her look, her vibe, how she presents herself. Whereas Wes, he's been into her as she is, always. And that just hits differently. Another thing that really stood out to me was the emotional side of the story. The way it handles Liz's grief over her mum was done so well. It didn't feel forced or overly dramatic. It was just woven naturally into everything. There were definitely moments that made me tear up, especially when Liz shares memories of her mum. And when Wes talks about her, that gave me such a warm, fuzzy feeling. Like it was subtle, but it meant so much. I also really liked the side characters. Wes's mum was iconic, just the right amount of sass, and I actually loved seeing Liz slowly open up to Helena and give that relationship a real chance. And one small thing that I thought was such a nice touch, each chapter starts with a classic rom-com quote, which just ties everything together so perfectly and really leans into that whole theme without overdoing it. So overall, I love the characters, I love the humor, I love the emotional moments. And I think the balance between all of that was done really well. It's fun, it's heartfelt, and it just gives you that giddy rom-com feeling by the end. Have you read this book? What are your thoughts? Leave them in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!